I woke with a start from a bad dream, and this heaviness and sadness sat upon me. All the reasons that I had come to this silent retreat in the first place flooded into my mind. My marriage had broken down. Like, you're an idiot, you've ruined the best thing that ever happened to you. What is wrong with you? You'll never be happy, was in my thoughts. And all of the suffering and the trauma and the discomfort from having had the flesh-eating disease and lost so much flesh on my torso, all of the drama of that, all of the trauma of that, all of the sadness of that, hating my body, not imagining that I could ever be happy again was on me. I pulled the covers over my head and began to cry. After a while I managed to stop crying, and I knew I needed to go and join the others for the final day of this retreat, and I got dressed and I began to head down to the group meeting room. I'd come because I desperately wanted to be free of the negative self-talk, and I wanted to just feel peaceful and happy. And yet the beauty of what was around me in that moment completely passed me by. I was head down in my sorrow, in my sadness, and I was missing the beautiful lawns, the amazing trees, the river, and all of that beauty that was around me passed me by. I walked down to the meditation room and I went in and I took my place around the edge, and we waited for the therapist. In she came, and she would ask us one question. Every day was the same. How are you feeling right now? And so she began to go around the group, and I was kind of half listening, but I was more with my own self, trying not to cry, but my thoughts were just there. And she came around to me and she looked at me surprised, and she said, "What's going on with you?" And I said, "Oh, I had this awful thing happened to me." And I was about to continue and tell her about the terrible disease that I'd had and how difficult that had been and how it had ended up blowing my marriage apart. And she looked at me and she said, "Well, you can fuck it up or you can go home happy. It's up to you." Well, in that moment I felt so much anger, and I didn't say a word, because what I had been learning was true liberation was not in my thinking, it was in my feeling. And I kept my mouth shut and I just looked at her. And she looked at me again and she said, "Are you okay?" And I just said, "Yes, I'm processing, move on." And she looked at me and nodded and moved on to the next person. And what I was thinking in that moment was, what a bitch. She has got no idea what I have been through, the level of suffering that I have been through. She has got no idea how bad it was, how awful it was. But I didn't say a word. And so we got up and we began to move. And you see, I knew that the freedom I was seeking was not in my head. And I did my very best to pull away from the attention of the thinking and to dive into the feelings, just the raw feelings. I was so angry. And so I breathed and I moved and I allowed the anger. And then I was so sad and I kept breathing and moving. And all of a sudden, from inside was the thought, "Oh, I'm being a drama queen. What I really want is attention." And someone else in the group who was very ill had had a lot of attention. And I hadn't had very much attention that week because I had been in such a space of presence and joy, and it was all naturally inside of me, and I had been loving it. And so in that moment, the revelation was that true freedom is not in thinking, it is in feeling, and that you can find it in any moment. And all of the thought disappeared and the joy arose, and there was such, I just laughed. I burst out laughing, seeing what I was doing to myself. It was just incredible. So would you love to experience some of that joy and liberation too? You know, are you willing to consider that it's not you letting go of the thinking and coming into the rawness of feelings? You could open up to a whole new aspect of yourself. If you are, then I invite you to check out my free masterclass, Inner Critic to Inner Champion. In it, I'll share with you the process that I developed from that experience to process emotions. and also some other juicy stuff of like where the ego, where the thinking mind gets in the way of our true liberation, freedom and joy. You'll find it at wendyharrington.com/masterclass. There's no need to register, you can just watch it straight away. And yeah, I hope it brings you the liberation and the joy and the insight that there is way more to you, and we really can overcome this suffering, this struggling, no matter what we've been through. Lots of love, and I'll see you again soon. Bye for now.